this is Yujin Tang coming from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm here with Stephen Olikara. Is that right?
Yep,
Okay.
perfect.
Yeah. I'll let you give it a little bit of an introduction.
Sure. Well, first of all, Stephen Olikara, grew up in Brookfield, Wisconsin. Now a graduate from UW-Madison. I'm currently running for the U.S. Senate in Wisconsin. And one of the issues that got me into public service in the first place was how do we take on the challenge of global climate change? And I saw you interviewed my former professor, Greg Nemeth, at the La Follette School of Public Affairs at UW. So he was someone who definitely helped inspire me jump into this work when I was a student. Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. So before running for the U.S. Senate, I founded and led a national organization called Millennial Action Project, which is dedicated to organizing legislators from our generation to take on generational issues. And so part of why I got into that, why I founded MAP, is because I felt like there wasn't a pro-future voice in Congress. And so we started the bipartisan Congressional Future Caucus for young members of Congress. And one of the issues we did work on was clean energy innovation funding, and we got a bill passed along those lines. So Millennial Action Project has grown about 2,000 young elected officials across the country. But now we need to take this movement to the next level, and that's what we hope to do with this U.S. Senate race.
Okay. Oh, awesome. Okay, that sounds very cool. Can you talk to me a little bit more about what you've done with Millennial Action Project and how you got that, you say, climate caucus started?
Yeah, so back in 2013, congressional approval ratings went to their lowest level ever in history. It was, I think, around 13% was the low, and yet you continue to see the vast majority of members of Congress get reelected. So I saw that there's a disconnect between what people are looking for and what is actually happening. And then on top of that, I saw that perhaps the most underrepresented demographic in Congress right now is young people.
Right.
Generation Z and Millennials make up some of the largest generations in human history, and yet at that time there was one millennial in Congress or two millennials in Congress.
Wow.
So I was looking at the challenges of climate change and student debt and other issues and realizing who's actually looking out for the future.
Yeah.
Politics, exactly. Politics is very incentivized for short-term gains, not for long-term policymaking. So that was what led to MAP. I realized that the current trajectory of political dysfunction and polarization is unsustainable. You have this rising generation coming to office. How's that next generation going to govern? Will we continue trafficking in the politics of hate and deep and polarization and inaction, frankly, or are we going to create a new governing model that is inclusive, honest, and action-oriented?
Right. Wow. Yeah, that sounds great. I mean, I'm surprised that in 2013 that we had such a low congressional approval rating, and yet people still kept getting elected. So actually, as you were saying earlier, you're running for Senate. Can you tell us a little bit about what some of your initiatives are as your platform?
Well, the first big part of our Senate race is doing exactly what you're doing, which is getting young people involved in politics, people who've never been involved or maybe haven't been involved in a long time and haven't been inspired by politics. It's so negative and toxic right now. How can we create a politics that people are excited to be a part of? So that's a huge reason why I'm running for the U.S. Senate. And there are some specific issues too. For me, clean government, getting money out of politics is a huge part of that, because part of the reason why politics is not looking out for our future is because there are a lot of entrenched and moneyed interests that are keeping the status quo in place. And so we need to change the business model of politics.
The business model of politics.
Yes, exactly. What are the incentives in politics? Right now, for elected officials, their incentive is often not to get something done. Their incentive is to keep issues on the ballot, because what that does is you continue raising money off of the inaction, essentially. Because you're playing on people's emotions. You get people really fired up about how terrible the other side is.
Oh, right.
And as a result, politicians are not really getting things done. But also what happens is you have major corporate interests as well who've been writing a lot of legislation. And
Wait,
so
corporations are writing legislation?
essentially, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's indirect. I mean, they have millions of dollars of lobbyists And lobbyists often are directly submitting legislative language to members of Congress. And so you wonder, okay, why aren't we seeing action on climate change? Well, there are a lot of economic interests that are vested in the status quo who are invested in seeing the status quo continue. Whether there's fossil fuel industry and also politicians who have been bought by those industries as well. So that's the top issue, is changing the business model of politics. Gerrymandering reform is a part of that as well. Because if you're only catering to the extremes in politics, then you're not thinking about how to get something done. You're just trying to fire up the most extreme voices. And so that's not a pro-future, pro-action way of doing things. And so that's a big focus of our campaign. And then the other big focus is what we call our dignity agenda.
Yeah, I saw that on your site, dignity agenda.
Yeah, and dignity includes young people today having the dignity of having a livable planet in the future.
I would love to have a livable planet.
Yes, yeah. So we're going for a livable planet, and that means having the boldest climate agenda of any candidate that's running for the U.S. Senate right now.
Wow. Okay, I love that. I love that you have this bold agenda. Can you talk a little bit more about kind of what you see as some solutions to this economic kind of problem in politics?
Yeah, absolutely. So, first of all, right now in politics, members of Congress often spend a majority of their time not doing their job, but instead raising money from their big donors. So that affects their perspective on issues, but also it means they don't have time to do work. And so here's a good example.
Okay.
Right now, there actually is a lot of bipartisan agreement on the need to take action on climate in Congress right now.
Okay.
We've worked with a number of the Democrats and Republicans, built caucuses and convenings, and so, but people don't really pay attention to that right now. And in order to even see that those partnerships exist, you need to spend time going to meetings, going to committee hearings, building relationships with your colleagues in Congress. Well, that's not happening if you're spending all your time just running for your next office, or you're just constantly raising money. So that's part of the incentives that we're trying to change in our politics. Now, what I hope to do in terms of climate is dramatically expand R&D funding for clean energy and clean energy.
Talked about in his book too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Greg has highlighted that through a lot of this R&D funding, we're able to reduce the cost of solar technology, as an example. And then also, I think we need continued support for the deployment of clean energy technologies through things like tax credits. And basically, I think this is a pro-market solution. Just the government policies need to be on the side of the problem solvers instead of the polluters.
Right.
So that's a big part of our agenda.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you, Stephen. That's a really great explanation. So I think we're about to get kicked out here. We got to go in a little bit. But let me get one thing that you think our viewers could do to support this climate initiative.
Well, our central portal for people to get involved is StephenOlikara.com. That's our campaign website. Check us out on social media at Stephen Olikara or at Olikara for Senate on Instagram, TikTok, and other platforms. And we're building the movement here in Wisconsin to shape our nation's politics. So even if you're not in Wisconsin, this race still matters, because it'll be the most important Senate race in 2022. And we'll make history. I'll be I'm the first Asian running for this office in Wisconsin. I would be the only South Asian in Congress, and I think I'll add to the Millennial caucus in the U.S. Senate by 100%. So let's make that happen. Sign up and be part of the movement.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your time, Stephen.
Yeah.
All right, this has been Yujin Tang coming from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I'll see you guys next time in Chicago.